I was nearly 15, my mother got me a job on her brother's dairy farm, and I worked there until the war started. And then my elder brother, who was running the home farm, volunteered to go overseas, so I had to go home and work on the farm. And then I was called up for military service, and I think I could have got out of going, but my father, who served in France in 1916 to 19 during the First World War, said, no, you've got to go, so I went. And I spent the next 4 years and 8 months in the army doing all sorts of things, travelled all over Australia, went overseas, met a lot of nice people, spent many years with 6 people, and of those 6, I'm the only one left. All the rest have passed on. I don't know why I'm still around, because I was no better than what they were. I think the only thing really was I'm proud that at my age I'm still here. I have neither the wife or I have ever smoked cigarettes or drank alcohol, and that's my story. So that's the way I feel.
And what does Anzac Day mean to you?
I don't show much emotion, but I do feel internally pretty emotional about it, because it brings back memories of my army life and the people you served with. You often wonder, really, that the ones that I served with, I'm the only one that's left as far as I know, because you never see them. And when you stop and think back what my father must have gone through during the First World War, because he was a driver of horses and used to cart the ammunition and the guns up to the front line, but he never used to talk about it. He was a wonderful man to us kids when he was sober, but he'd become an alcoholic after he come back after a few years. And he was a wonderful man sober, but drunk he was a mongrel. And I had learned to drive at the age of 12 and a half.
And the recruiting sergeant said to me, "How old are you, son?" I said, "I'm 18 next week." He said, "When you're 18, come and see me." I was only 17 then. So anyway, that was I finished up joining the army when I was 17 and went to New Guinea, Borneo and Japan. And I was in the army for 6 years, and it was a royal experience. Something different. I don't think anybody knows what they're going to experience or what the experience will be. So I was there and worked out everything okay. I finished up coming home after the 6 years out of the army.
Yeah.
So all in all, it was a good pastime.
Tell us about the time you served.
Well, we went to New Guinea.
Yeah.
That was the first trip. We went on a Dutch boat, was named the Both, and very small. And I hadn't been on 5 minutes when I was sick. That's when I learnt that I wasn't a good traveller. I went downstairs and laid on my bunk for 8 days, and that wasn't supposed to happen, but anyway, they left me there, and all I had to eat for those days.
Anything that might impact on me, my poor body, couldn't look after it. And so there was 4 of us in our little compound that we had, Australians, and we were playing cards, and a bit after midnight at night, and suddenly there was this great explosion outside our compound, Karumpa. And I said, "What's that?" And I instinctively knew what it was. It was a 122mm rocket, which we'd learnt about here, but I'd never actually heard one. But you just instinctively knew that what it was, fired at us from probably 10 miles away. And the beauty of Max, the old soldier, the hardened soldier, had been there and done that. he said exactly the same thing. What's that? And I analysed things. I analysed that later, and I realised that he had the same instinctive reaction that I, as the new soldier, had. The old soldier the same. We both went down to good, and your brain clicked in, knew what it was, and instinctively the adrenaline flows from there. And then your training takes over, and you react accordingly. And waited for the next one, came closer. Don't worry that, because the next one's going to be right on our hut. And then, but the next one fell further away and more to the, not so much on direct that way, but more to the right, like as if the whole thing was swinging away from us. And my job at that stage was the compound, was to have to go to the headquarters bunker. I couldn't think of the word. I was going to say barracks and bunker, and I needed to get my rifle out, and I had it locked in a wardrobe, because you can't leave, where Americans are, you can't leave rifles. It's different laying around. They might nick it on you.
Every night, so there would be a section detailed to go down to that gun pit, and you would sleep down there and man the machine gun in shifts during the night. And that was a little bit more hairier down there, you know, that you would often hear movement and the like out in front, and you know, in some other areas there'd be firing and people moving around and firing, and some, you know, and you're often sitting down there wondering what was going on and what was going to happen in that situation. You know, yes. On operations, it was quite a bit different. On operations, we actually dug ourselves in, and I think you did see some of the photos in my albums that showed the actual sleeping pits that we dug.
The ones that were like...
Yes. Basically with sandbags over the top of us, and you'd crawl into that and go to sleep and hope that you had enough protection if there were incoming mortars and the like.
Yeah.
So that you know, it was important though, as soon as you were out on an operation, that the first thing you did was do a clearing patrol around the area to establish that there weren't any enemy in that area. So you'd land on a fire support base and then do your clearing patrols, and then start to dig in. And once you were dug in, you were relatively safe. We also dug in our command posts and also had a machine gun pit out on the wire, you know, to protect that that fire support base while we were there.
It was a horrific experience, actually. I was in the mortar platoon of one battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, and we had been on an operation a little bit further south than this. And this day we were dropped into a place called Firebase Coral, and we were dropped late in the afternoon. So by the time we'd set up our mortars and dug a small shell scrape, it was dark. So there's not much else we could do. So the infantry platoons went through us to set up a barricade, but for some unknown reason, because of the dark, they missed each other in the dark, and they left a couple of kilometres between them. And at 2:30 in the morning, we were attacked by North Vietnamese troops, and we were overrun. We lost 5 killed that night and 8 wounded. And we were very, very lucky to survive, the ones that did survive.
What was your time like at the war, and where did you serve?
I served in 7th Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment. I was called up for national service in 1966 and went to Vietnam in 1967. My time in Vietnam was up and down. I was wounded at one point and spent 5 weeks in hospital. Not long after that, I came home for 2 weeks and then went back to Vietnam to complete my time there, and consequently, to lead up to that, Josh was talking a little while ago about a particular photograph which I'm in and proud to be in. But Josh is
Yeah, I do a class at school called the subject's history, and it's called Australians at War. And yeah, that photograph popped up in the slideshow, and I told the teacher all about it.
It's a
Yeah.
fairly iconic photo.
Yeah.
It's representative of all the guys that went to Vietnam, not just me. So
Yeah,
it's but it is rather an iconic photo.
yeah.
As any other country, Americans often made the comment that if you want to see how it's done properly, go and watch the Australians, because we don't lose men.
Yeah.
Americans do. They work on mass numbers. We would work on well, it's interesting. You would have heard of the SAS,
Yeah.
which is the the gun hoes, whatever. They would go out together as two people, go out in the bush,
Oh, okay.
and they just quietly go around. They lost a lot of fellas, but they also saved a lot of people
Yeah.
in the type of work they did. We mainly only had two bases, one at Nui Dat, which was the main base for Australia as far as the military bodies go.
Okay, yeah.
And there was another place that we called the Horseshoe, which was a permanent listening post.
Yeah.
And it was about, say, 15 k's plus from Nui Dat, and we had people out there, and it was a good observation point because there was a mountain range called the Long Highs.
Yep.
So they're along there, we're here, and the Horseshoe was in the middle, and it would give us a little bit closer look at what the enemy might be up to in amongst the Long Highs. A lot of Australians were killed in there. They were trying to go in there and get them out, but that was a very rocky sort of a range.
I was called up to do national service. Mandatory service, the government made us go in. Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
I called up papers when I was 19, and by the time I got in there, I was just over 20. Yeah. Yeah, everyone was 19 when they got called up. So.
How old were you when you got out?
21.
21. So in 2 years.
Yeah, well, it was a 2-year mandatory service, but I went in there at the end of the war, and they started to bring the troops home. So by the time I came out, I'd done 22 months.
Okay.
I think the other couple of weeks ago you mentioned that you were in Signals.
That's
Did
right.
you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, good call to be in. Yeah. Better than being in the infantry. The sort of, good soldiers. Yeah.
Did you like being in the army?
Yeah, it was all right. Yeah, I didn't want to go when I first got called up, but then I thought, I might as well, enjoy it, make the most of it. Yeah, that was good life. Yeah.
It's probably a family bond or a sporting team bond because we all depended on each other. And we lived in each other's pockets 24 hours a day. So obviously and they're spread out all over Australia. And over the years we've just become a stronger and stronger body and all the better for it.
Yep. And your family, do they know your story?
They do now as a result of this,
Yes.
talking to you kids.
Yeah.
I spoke to after the first week, I think it was.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to talk to them and I took it. They were all there together. And so I thank you for that. Now they know. And I've got to admit I feel much better for telling them. So yeah, again, thank you.
Yeah. Did you show them the pencil and the medals and everything?
Yeah, they've seen those.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the ones I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've seen them. So that was the best thing to come out of this, apart from meeting new kids. Was I unloaded on my family, and I probably would never have done it otherwise.
Right. I joined the Navy in 1964. In 1964, I went and did an apprenticeship. And at the completion of my apprenticeship, I went out to sea. And in 1968, I went to sea. And the ship I went to sea on was the Hobart. HMAS Hobart was then called to do service in Vietnam. And we left in April of 1968 and we went to Vietnam. And on the 18th of June in 1968, HMAS Hobart was attacked by American aircraft. And when it was attacked, we were mistaken for enemy, and we were attacked by American aircraft, and we had 3 missiles put into us. That killed 2 people, Able Seaman Butterworth and Chief Petty Officer Hunt. I was lucky. I was in bed at the time. It was in the middle of early morning, and we didn't know anything about it. If we had been at full action stations, it would have been okay, but we weren't, and we were attacked in the middle of the night, basically for no reason at all. So that's why we lost. We had 11 wounded at that time because of the situation that it was. So that was an exciting part of being in Vietnam. We did come back. We went and got the ship repaired, and then we went back again, back out into the Vietnam waters, and came home at that time, a few months later. And I did some time then ashore, and then went back to the HMAS Perth, which went back to Vietnam again. So I did 2 tours of Vietnam on different ships.
Yeah, I was part of the workshop there, so we maintained the Australian military vehicles. So we had our own vehicle mechanics, we had our own armament fitters that looked after the rifles and machine guns.
Yep.
So basically we supplied the tools and the parts and that. Some used to go missing because the locals used to like our tools, so we used to go hunting around Phnom Penh looking for something suitable, which sometimes we couldn't find. So we went to other UN countries and tried to get stuff off them, and so that's what we basically did to keep the vehicles going. So
So how did you get into being in that position of working in the workshop?
I was a Ramey storeman.
Yep.
That was my trade here in Australia.
Yep.
And when I got offered the posting over there, I was actually on a promotion course. I was at the end of it when I got offered, and so that's why I joined the army.
Yep.
To go overseas, and so I said put my hand up. It was actually a 12-month posting.
Yep.
But because the elections went really well, the main body came back in October. So
Getting back from Vietnam and going back into your life in Australia, how was that?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of other people would have spoken about this, but with the anti-war demonstrations and the feeling about the war, which worsened over the years, most of the Australian public were pretty well against the war in Vietnam and didn't have much time for any Australian troops that had served over there. So when we got back from the war, it wasn't a subject that you sort of spoke about at any stage, and probably through my career I sort of didn't really make it known that I'd actually served in Vietnam. It's probably something that I would never change in my life. It was I learned a lot when I went in the army about looking after your mates, and that's one thing the Australian Army did do, and they still continue to do. They don't like individual peoples in there, and they certainly get that out of your system. It's all about looking after your mates and mateship, and I've still got a lot of mates. We have a lot of reunions every 3 years. We like to catch up with them, and it's always good. They're from all over Australia, and the friendship just was always there. It's always great to catch up with them. So still a few I keep in contact with on the telephone and that sort of thing, but a lot of them I just catch up with the reunions we have every 3 years. So.
Remember, I had one kid on one of my courses, and his name was Chris, K-R-I-S-S. That was his surname. I can't remember his first name, but he looked like he was 12-year-old. And Oh, his sister turned up for graduation and she looked about 5 and they looked exactly the same. He was so baby-faced.
How old was he actually?
17.
17,
Yeah, they had to be 17. I used to get them between 17 and, say, 35, maybe 34.
yeah.
Yeah, and of course, 24 students.
Yeah.
And the first 3 days when you pick your course up, you got to teach them how to mop floors, do their ironing,
Yeah.
do their washing, make their beds,
Yeah.
make sure that every drawer has got that rightly correct. You know, like there's your singlets, and next one's their underpants and all handkerchiefs and all this type of stuff. It had to be laid out. There was a formula.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and everything had to be hung up properly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
and all that. Anyway, making the bed, and you show them how to make the bed. Anyway, our first big that we called it panic lock. Every night was panic night, and inspection Tuesday morning.
Okay.
Whereas they scrub everything up and all that,
Yeah.
and you have a course orderly, and he designates who cleans what.
Okay.
Well, it might be the ablutions, it might be outside,
Yeah.
it'd be the hallways,
Mm.
yeah, and of course they do their own rooms, polish and that, and make their beds. And first morning, I walk into this room, and there was 4 to a room, and I walk in, and the blokes are, another 3 blokes are going, and I looked, and Chris's bed wasn't made, and they're looking, and of course Orley was in the room too. He was bunked there,
Yeah.
and he's going. I said, ACR Chris, I said, can you give me a decent explanation why that bed isn't made?
What did he say?
He said, Corporal, my mum makes my bed. Your mum makes your bed? I'm your mum. I don't make your bed. And he's going, anyway, I said, bunk it now. And I had to get out. I went down into the toilet and I couldn't stop laughing. You know, pulled myself together. Oh, geez, it was funny. Such a little baby, like, my mum makes my bed. After all the training. And anyway, he turned out a terrific student.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah, he was great in the finish. You know,